Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Arsenal Fan Theory podcast. Tonight, I'm joined by Mike
What's up, Brian? What's up, everyone?
and Renier.
Nice to see you guys again.
So, guys, this is not going to be a usual Arsenal Fan Theory podcast, meaning we're not going to run through the Watford review. We'll do more like a Premier League wrap-up for the last day. But first, obviously, let's touch on the Watford game, Mike. Seeing that it was our last game for the season, we didn't really have that much to play for. But it was still disappointing seeing how we gave the game back to Watford, because I think with a 3-0 lead, we were very comfortable. And yeah, we just let them back into the game.
Yeah, well, Brian, this is actually a good game to look at for a review. I think there was quite a lot of talking points. One of the main ones would obviously be how we proved that we have to play with a back three at the moment with the squad that we have. Our defense was not good enough on the day. Another touching point would probably be Holding. I think he was quite solid defensively, but half of the game his passes were completely off, gave it straight back to the opposition, and other half of the game, he put in some great passes, So obviously if that's something he could work on, he could be a big future for the team. How we all hope, well, all the Arsenal fan theory panel would hope he would become. And another thing I'd actually like to mention, the partnership of Granit Xhaka and Dennis Ceballos in the midfield. It's something that's actually starting to really excite me. Probably for the first 3 quarters of the season, we didn't know if Ceballos was doing enough to probably extend the loan or sign him permanently. But what I've started to notice is that Xhaka and Ceballos are really starting to develop a partnership. They're starting to really understand each other and how they play and how the game needs to move forward, obviously attackingly, and if we need to if they need to help out defensively. So I actually hope, one thing that I wanted to say is I hope Dennis Ceballos at least extends his loan, because Granit Xhaka and Dennis Ceballos, I think, is going to be a great partnership this season.
That's a good talking point where we maybe can bring in Renier, Mike. Just before I throw the question to Renier, I slightly disagree with you. I think that there was not much to play for, and we went into cruise control when we were 3-0 up. They didn't really create much, I feel, in my personal opinion, before they got awarded the penalty. And the Xhaka Ceballos partnership. Renier, Michael mentioned that he's excited about the partnership. You've watched a few Arsenal games now. Obviously, you couldn't watch the last one because all of the kickoffs were at the same time. But I feel we lack a link between attack and the midfield if we only have that two-man midfield. Mike, I agree. They've got a bit of an understanding, but we still lack key elements.
Yeah, well, Brian, sorry, Renier. Obviously, I agree with you that we need a 3-man midfield, but looking at someone that's biased, that should actually be the forward attacking player. If we shouldn't land Partey, I could see actually Ceballos actually turning into the box-to-box midfielder that does a lot of defensive work as well, obviously. And actually looking to attack, to add more attacking threat going forward. But this was obviously for this review this season.
Yeah, well, he didn't do much. They didn't bring much different to the team, I feel, when Xhaka came on. I think we were still very vulnerable. But yeah, Renier, your opinion about that midfield duo?
Oh, to be very honest with you, I'd say the midfield of Arsenal is lacking identity. So Ceballos has the potential to be a very, very good player. He is by standard an attacking midfielder. You can see that in the way he tries to pick out the passes and so forth. So I think he could be a very good player. However, he needs, I would agree with Mike, I think a 3-man midfield would do best for Arsenal. So I do feel that if they could actually, get a proper, I would almost say, identification between who does what and whose job is what, they might actually be a bit more, I would also say, more clinical with the attack. Xhaka hasn't necessarily been a standout for me throughout the season. With the games that I watched, he's not consistent at all. I don't have any respect for him with regards to captaincy as he was after everything that happened. But the thing is, there's no solid rock in the midfield. So unless you get a solid central defending midfielder, Tobias is going to try and do everything in the midfield, which would never really unlock his full potential in being an attacking player.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with you, but I think Tobias is a difficult one. He's still 23 years old. I think a lot of people forget that. But looking at his passing range, the whole Arsenal midfield, they call it like a horseshoe passing. Everything is back and around the box. Nothing goes into the box except from the wings and the wing backs. So even I don't see Tobias as a box-to-box midfielder. He doesn't get into the box enough. It might be because of his position, Mike. I'm not sure, but I don't know how much it's going to change if there's an additional midfielder in the midfield with them. But yeah, the 3-2 result secured the lowest position for Arsenal in I think 25 years. We ended up 8th. I think it looked more like we're going to end up 10th at a stage, but yeah, we secured 8 spots. And let's move on then to the Tottenham result, which was a 1-1 draw to Crystal Palace, which was enough for you to secure Europa League football this year, didn't you?
Yeah, so happy about the Europa League football. I was not expecting it, to be honest. About 4 weeks ago or so, we actually had a conversation, and I touched on my points of we're not going to be able to reach Arsenal at all. So I was very, very amazed by that result with regards to us coming above you guys. The Europa League would do us good. However, it's not Champions League, so we won't attract those big names we used to always attract. But still, some Europe is better than no Europe at the moment.
Well, Mike, I don't know if you noticed that after the game, there were big celebrations coming out of Tottenham's bench. There was a video doing circulation about Mourinho and his coaching staff celebrating 6th place, where we've gotten a lot of stick for celebrating or acting or using the 4th place position as a so-called trophy. But it seems like other clubs are really seeing the benefit of finishing in the top 4 constantly. Yeah, so before I jump to you, I just also wanted to ask you, do you think that this Tottenham team deserved the 6th place finish, or do you think someone like, and I'm not saying Arsenal, maybe a Wolves, across the performance of the year might be more inclined to play in the Europa League?
Yeah, let's be honest, Brendan. If you look at the performance that Spurs did have throughout the year, it was revolting, to be honest. We had a good few games, the last few games after the restarts and so forth we played all right after the first 2 or 3 games. So, that's probably what got us into Europe. I mean, there was a stage where we were actually sitting about 11th, 10th. So I don't necessarily feel that we deserve it. Celebrating that 6th place is actually quite disappointing, to be honest. If you look at the standards, playing Champions League final last year, now we're celebrating the Europa League spot. So I'm not very entertained by that fact, but then again, it speaks to the management we have at the moment. It's not a lot of enthusiasm, but nonetheless, if you look at it that way, as I said, a bit of Europe is better than no Europe. So, yeah.
Brent, sorry, I just quickly want to jump in here.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Europe has a big impact on the club. Obviously financially and bringing in big name players and all of those things. But not only that, it's also for a club like Spurs, Chelsea, or Arsenal, that has a lot of young talent coming through. It obviously generates a lot more play time, a lot more game time at the top level for those type of players. But yeah, I actually saw one of the pundits come out and say, I can't remember who it was. He said that at this stage, it feels like Spurs and Arsenal are competing to who's going to come out on top on the league. And that's what they're celebrating at the end of the day. But, it's 2 big clubs. It shouldn't be about that. They should be looking further than that. We should be looking at, well, I'm not going to talk for Spurs from a Spurs perspective, but, for Arsenal fan, we want trophies. We want Champions League football. We want You know, we want history. You know, we want, as we did at Highbury, we want to replicate at the Emirates. That's obviously one thing that I agree with. And Europe, with the financial impact, bringing in big players, giving more game time, obviously it does have a lot to do with it.
But to answer on your question, Rene, apologies, Mike. Just touching on what Mike said as well. Teams like Arsenal and Spurs are teams that are supposed to be aiming for Champions League spots. Not even. We're supposed to be challenging for the top of the league. So, it is a disappointment, but I do feel, with all due respect, even a team like Sheffield, actually deserves to be in Europa League more than what we do at the moment. If you look at the type of season that they had.
Yeah, well, look, at the end of the day, doesn't matter what type of football we played or what happened, the league positions don't lie. So,
38 games.
Yeah, 38 games. If Spurs deserve to be at 6, at the end of the league, they're going to be there. So, doesn't matter what I know. I understand where you're coming from, where you're saying like the football might not be the best of standard. You didn't enjoy watching a lot of the games, but you deserve to be in 6. I actually hope Spurs ended in 7 because that would have given a bit of extra motivation for us this weekend, because that means we could have knocked Spurs out of the Europa League positions. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But I think an FA Cup final is more than enough motivation to get the players hyped up.
Most definitely.
There's obviously a lot of things we want to look at tonight. Want to jump to the Champions League positions, and a big shock, Leicester didn't make it. Obviously, they had a huge opportunity to get into the Champions League. The direct rivals for that position, Man United, all they needed was and unfortunately, they couldn't pull it off. They lost 2-0 against United. Mike, you mentioned also Jesse Lingard scored his only goal for the season in that game.
Yeah, well, it was actually quite a funny thing. There was a bet excuse me. There was a bet going around about Lingard not scoring or assisting a goal for the whole season, and you would have got something like 1,500 times the money you put in on that bet, and there he goes and scores in like the last minute of Premier League football. So that was quite funny. But also Leicester is not that big of a surprise to me. I felt like they kind of overperformed the whole season, and lockdown was just that it stopped their momentum completely. After lockdown, I think they've been one of the worst sides coming back. Obviously, if they've got a lot of talent going through their side, in Vardy, you've got the Golden Boot, they've got Madison, Chilwell, Bobby Barnes. So, yeah, they do have a lot of great players, but, this season was more or less the same as the year they won the title. It was a complete shock. You look at the team on paper and you don't go, this is going to be a champion. So,
well, it was a complete shock that they couldn't buy a win after lockdown, and even the last few games before lockdown. I think they had a 13-point lead above United when lockdowns were all finished. And the games restarted, so that was a bit of a shock. And then let's go to the other side of London, Chelsea taking up that other Champions League position. They've got a manager. I'm not crazy about Frank Lampard, but kudos to him. His first season in the big time. Yes, he had a season with Derby, but he managed to lead Chelsea to the top 4. So there might be a big prospect looking at the signings next season.
Definitely, no, I agree with you. So, all praise to Lampard on what he's done. Even if we don't like Chelsea or whatever the case may be, if you look at a manager coming into the Premier League for the first ever time, not even just your first professional, season of football, as you said, I think it's an absolute brilliant thing to do. So, no one expected Lampard to actually make the Champions League position, especially with the type of form that they were lifting by Surrey. So, all kudos to them. I'm glad for them. I think they're going to be very good in Europe next season. If you look at the signings and so forth, you could actually look at a team that could start challenging for semi-final positions in the Champions League. With the type of acquisitions they're making and the rumours that's going on, I mean, they've got Ziyech that's already there with Timo Werner. And if they do get Kai Havertz as well, it's they said in an article today, but we all know how the rumors are during transfer season that Havertz deal is almost agreed. But if it does actually happen, is a different story. But I think if those type of signings do come through, they should be someone to reckon with, even with the Premier League. Maybe giving Liverpool a run for their money.
Yeah, look, I expect a lot of teams to be a bit closer to Liverpool next season. I don't think it's going to be as big a runaway as we saw this season. And that I also feel that, they're taking a bit of a risk because a lot of the players they're purchasing are from outside of the Premier League. And we've seen players struggle to settle and maybe take a season or two to settle down. But that being said, yeah, I think they are building something very exciting, and they're investing in youth because a lot of the players that they are purchasing also are quite young. So,
yeah.
Mike, just on the Arsenal transfer news, I also saw something that Dani Ceballos is very close to extending his loan with Arsenal for another year. So that's a bit of positive news.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Brent, just jumping in. Obviously, it does excite me. I know you're a very big Dani Ceballos fan, but I think at the moment I'm also becoming quite a fan of his. And two other stories that I actually read today was that Arsenal actually have a clause to extend Alba's contract with a year, but they don't want to trigger it because they want him to sign on a cheaper deal. That's the first time I've heard of that, so I don't know how true it is. And I also, obviously, there was a lot of reports going that Atletico Madrid, declined an offer of 25 million plus Guendouzi. And now I saw obviously that Arsenal are readying a bid for just triggering his release clause. And I also see a lot about that Gelson Fernandes kid from Sporting. Apparently, he's also very close to that. But I'd rather look at someone that's a proven player right now in the Premier League. Someone who would be a dream signing for me at Arsenal would be Jack Grealish.
Yeah, I think personally, with them not being relegated, we'll jump to the relegated teams in the second. Them getting a draw against West Ham, meaning they stay up. I see Grealish staying at Villa for another season. I think they'll just have the power to keep hold of him. And I don't see Premier League clubs paying 80 million plus for Jack Grealish at the moment. So unfortunately, we shot ourselves in the foot there for, beating Watford. I think we really had a chance of going in and getting him for a steal meaning 45 mil, but I don't see that happening anymore. But let's talk about the relegated teams. So obviously the one I just mentioned, Watford, they needed a draw. I think based on results, a draw would have been enough for them, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think they still would have been behind on goal difference.
Yeah, so they were 1 goal behind Aston Villa with their big loss to Man City on the Wednesday before.
Okay, so they needed a win based on the other results that also happened on the day. And obviously, they fought back extremely well. I think Danny Welbeck had 2 great opportunities. Martinez denying him both times excellently, proving that he might, I've seen rumors Chelsea linked with Martinez, or looking at Martinez as a keeper for them that I wouldn't want. But yeah, Watford down. Any players you guys think that the Premier League clubs would look at signing from Watford?
Yeah, I would say firstly, I'm just going to touch on one that I think would be a bit of an underdog to be, to be bought. But I do think the kid's got a lot of potential. Is when you look at Ismail Assar. I mean, 19 years old, that kid is very, very good. He didn't get the best of service, but the service that he did get throughout the Premier League, he actually converted, and he was a very good player for them. So I do think he'd be one to go up.
Yeah, I also think it's a very interesting prospect. Mike, what about Decore that Arsenal's been linked to for so many seasons? He is 27 now, but still, 27 is not that old. I think he's in the peak of his powers, and we can probably get 3 good years out of him before selling him on. Would you take him at Arsenal?
I would, Ren. Yeah, well, I would have said, obviously, other than Sarr, another another top player that all the top clubs actually could look at is Takura. We've been linked with him for quite a while, and in his younger days, obviously 27, he still has quite a few years left. But we thought he could actually become that Vieira type figure in Arsenal. Well, me and yourself and Dean and whatever, we had those chats before, and he's got a lot of talent. I definitely see him fitting into Arsenal. He's got a lot of Premier League experience by now. He's a big player, strong player. He gets up and down the pitch, and he's got a lot of quality in his final ball and his finishing as well. If a party transfer were to fall through and Torreira moves on, which I see happening, I'd definitely be okay with Torreira coming.
Neil, looking at your midfield, the Tottenham midfield, I definitely see someone like Takura fitting there in there as well. Sissoko, he's proven his worth, I think, in the latter part of the season, but I think a bit of competition for him might not be a bad thing for Tottenham.
Yeah, not at all. I think, with all due respect, any team in the Premier League would be lucky to have a player like Takura. I mean, he's physical. He's a rock in the midfield. He's got great passing ability. He's got great attacking ability. So he's a brilliant player. I think if we could get him, it would probably be for a steal, because Watford's obviously going to try and make as much money back as possible from their players, and obviously to keep most of them as well. But I do think players like Takura could actually help them out of a financial slump at this moment. I mean, the type of money that clubs lose with the relegation is immense. But just touching on your previous question as well, I think a player that we actually completely forgot about of Watford would be Gerard Deulofeu. I mean, that guy was absolutely immense throughout the whole season, and I think if he wasn't injured throughout the restarts, it could have been a different story for Watford as well. So I do think he would be scooped up as well. But if we're going back to the midfield options, Sissoko's not been having a great season. That consistency is fading away. So yeah, we could probably invest in a new central defending midfielder or so forth. But I mean, we've got so many midfielders at the moment. Investing in one more, I just don't see the points in it. If you do a swap, 100%, I don't go and buy another one, because you're going to be standing and wasting money.
Yeah, well, Brent, I actually wanted to jump in. Spurs' midfield is kind of like renewed myself at the chat on the Premier League show. It's kind of like Arsenal's defense at the moment. There's players in abundance, but not necessarily the talent that you need to do Champions League or to win titles or anything. Because they've got all the young players coming through, like Gary Winks and whatever, plus Eric Dyer, Musa Sissoko, new signings like Ndombele, the salsa that they'll probably sign on a permanent. So it's difficult to see Spurs making another midfield signing throughout the summer.
I didn't say the shit. I'm just asking the question if they need to see them fitting into that Tottenham team.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I would sell 3 of our midfield players for the Takura, if that's a question.
Yes.
To be very straightforward there.
Okay, cool. I want to jump on to the next game, and that obviously you already mentioned was the Villa West Ham draw. I did watch a bit of Match of the Day or the Goal Rush while I was watching the Arsenal game. I had like 2 devices open, and I saw the Villa team absolutely going crazy when Grealish scored that goal, thinking that they were well made it. Basically, they saved from the drop. And a few minutes later, probably not a few minutes, probably 1 minute later, West Ham struck back. Are you guys glad to see Villa stay up, or do you think someone like Bournemouth brings a bit more to the Premier League?
Well, Brent, I'm actually glad to see Villa stay up. Obviously, if they stayed down, if they went down, obviously it would have been a lot easier for Arsenal to sign Jack Grealish. So that's obviously the only negative for me. But Aston Villa showed a lot of fight, obviously throughout the post-lockdown period, and that's something you as a fan like to see. I'm not a big fan of Watford, sadly of Troy Deeney. Who cares? Bournemouth, I was actually quite a fan of Bournemouth, but this season they stagnated quite a lot. Didn't see a lot from them. So Yeah, so I'm actually quite happy to see Villa stay up.
Yeah, I'm going to go on Renee, sorry.
Yeah, so I think it's a good thing for Villa to stay up. They've been keeping it interesting. The type of fights and the type of willpower they show to actually go stay up from relegation spots is brilliant. I mean, they only got out of relegation I think a week or two ago, so it's something amazing. I think I'm glad to see them staying up. Sad for Grealish though, because he's going to stay there another season. But other than that, I think it's a good thing.
Look, I'd probably like to see another team go down in Bournemouth. I really enjoy watching Bournemouth. I think it's been a good competitive team and a very attacking team over the last a few years. I think the last 5 years. But unfortunately, they didn't make it. And you could see the quality they have in the team when they played against Everton. The scoreline was 3-1. And players like King, Wilson, even the youngster Brooks are going to be in very high demand. I would love to see Brooks probably at Arsenal next season. Mike, I don't know. I couldn't. When the season started, I couldn't predict Bournemouth going down, especially with the players like I mentioned in the squad at the moment.
No, Brian, I also wouldn't have put my money on Bournemouth going down. No, but obviously it's not a lot of changed. Has changed throughout the Bournemouth squad, throughout the team, throughout the club since they came to the Premier League, 5 odd years ago. So that's obviously caught up with them. So actually, even though they're going down, I expect a lot of changes going through there. But looking at recruits from the Bournemouth squad, Callum Wilson, he's going to be a top commodity going throughout the Premier League at least. He's a great player. But someone that could also benefit Arsenal, City, probably any of the top 6 clubs that they're defending would be Nathan Ake. I think clubs are going to jump right on him. He's
I think
outstanding defender.
I think City is already in advanced talks with Bournemouth if the rumors prove to be true. So I think they jumped first and they'd probably get what they want usually when they do go after a player.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talks over the season that Ake has obviously been linked away from a move from Bournemouth, and Chelsea obviously have their first refusal clause. So hopefully Chelsea jump on City and then Arsenal come right after.
Wouldn't that be a nice story for you Arsenal fans?
Wow. Anita, Mike also made an interesting point I actually wanted to ask you. Someone like Callum Wilson, I think there's a lot of mid-table teams that would be looking to get him. If I was Crystal Palace, probably I would be looking to bring him in. But if I was Tottenham, to be honest, I also would probably want to bring him in. When Harry Kane's not there, you just don't seem to have firepower up top. And I think having someone that's Premier League proven and that's Premier League quality, would definitely benefit your Tottenham squad.
No, definitely. I do think Callum Wilson could actually have a brilliant impact at a team like Spurs. Kane is an absolute gem of a player. I mean, he's one of the world's best, if he's not the best. But the thing is, Kane is an half a season player. You get him for half of the season and then he's injured half of the season. So whether it's for small patches playing and being injured or a big injury, there's always something. So it's been proven he's injury prone over the last few years. And for the last 2 years, I mean, Llorente hasn't really been a standout when he was there before we sold him now last season. But I do think someone like Callum Wilson, even Joshua King, would be a brilliant fit for a backup for Kane, because the whole chemistry of the Spurs team, gets completely strolled along. Playing Lucas on striker, then playing Son on striker, and so forth. It just doesn't make any sense. So I would definitely pounce on that opportunity. I agree.
Guys, and I'm going to just jump onto the final game, or the team that we all knew was already relegated a few weeks ago. And they got actually thrashed by Man City 5-0, I believe, against Norwich Man City. But it's going to be a difficult task for Tottenham to get someone in that actually wants to play second fiddle or striker, for most of the season. And someone someone they might look at that might want to come and play more Premier League football is Pukki from Norwich. Yes, he faded off in the end of the season, but I think he also proved that he could be a really good replacement, even if it is only for a patch here and there to replace Kane when he's not available.
No, agreed 100%. I think any striker in the form of Pukki or Wilson, could be brilliant for them. But once again, it's about the service that they would be receiving. I think with the type of quality, just put Pukki in the start of the season, put him in the middle of the front three, even in the Arsenal side. I mean, if you put Saka on the right and you put Pepe on the right and Saka on the left, or Oba on the left, whatever the case may be, the type of service he would be receiving, he would have probably scored twice the amount of goals. So, play with that type of potential definitely. And I think with the lack of strikers in the Spurs squad, they do like their older strikers when it comes to a backup. So Pukki would probably be the main option at the moment.
Mike, and someone that I really think that Arsenal can look at signing in the Norwich squad is obviously Todd Cantwell, or what's the other midfielder's name? Belguena or something like that. It's the Argentine playmaker. Which one would you prefer seeing, Arsenal?
Well, Brent, to be honest, from Norwich, I have a lot of young talent coming through. They've got players that look like they can obviously become world class. Right back Max Orange. I think he would probably be the first player I would like to sign from them. Obviously, we signed Cedric Suarez, so that's not going to happen. So other than that, honestly, I don't want to sign any Norwich players. Cantwell, he's a great player. He definitely has a bright future ahead of him. But the only way I would sign him if we don't continue alone or sign Dennis Ceballos. I think that's the only way he fits into our team. They've got a great young 21-year-old centre back. I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, he's someone you could look at, and like the midfielder you said, or even Buendia, or it might even be the same midfielder you're talking about. So they've got a lot of great talent, but I think Arsenal need to be looking further if they actually want to climb up the table. Progress as a club.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it's fine. I think your grabbing on the mic made it is a bit more of a harsh sound. But I actually just wanted to touch on Mike. You're saying we need to look further up the field. I think Arsenal are in a rebuilding phase, and we might have to look at the young gems to actually try and upset the market a bit, because I don't think we're going to be able to afford the top stars. All right, guys, you obviously had your Premier League show last week, and you did a few predictions on the games. How close did you get? Is there a clear winner, or what's the story?
Yeah, just to quickly touch on that, I was speaking to Mike at the end of the episode of last week, and I told him, you know what, I said West Ham 2-1 over Aston Villa, but in the beginning I actually predicted a 2-1 to Villa. However, that was a draw, so that's null and void, my friend.
So,
Mike?
Well, to be honest, Brian, I can't actually quite remember who won.
I've got the results here. If I could quickly share them.
Okay.
So the first one was Arsenal 3-2 to Watford.
I went 3-0 Arsenal. What was your prediction?
Mine was a 3-0 as well. I think we'll have to recap on that session, my friend, to be very honest. Okay. In any case, the next one there was Chelsea 2-0 Wolves. That one we actually had the same. Crystal Palace Tottenham was another game no, we didn't touch on the Crystal Palace game.
No, we didn't do that one.
Not at all. Okay, we did touch on Everton and Bournemouth. Both of us royally to our behinds on that one. Going over to the next one, we had the West Ham and Aston Villa. Yeah, which was a 1-1.
And I predicted Villa to win, and I think you took West Ham. So I think it's a draw, obviously.
Well, Mike, with all our other predictions, go running through the whole Arsenal Fan Day podcast lifespan, which is a couple of weeks only, but I don't think we've predicted one scoreline correctly. So
Still not.
I think it's something we definitely need to sharp up on next season. Hopefully we get one or two right next season. Okay, guys. So I'm going to wrap up this episode with a question to both of you. Right? I want you to name, it doesn't need to be a player or a team specifically. It can be a moment. It can be anything, you know. So I want the biggest shock of the season, the biggest surprise, and there was one more. I had it on my tongue. So the shock of the season, biggest surprise, and the best performer. All right. So it doesn't specifically have to be a player or a club. It can be a moment. It can be whatever the case. It can be something like VAR, whatever you feel fits those categories best. Let's start with you, René.
Yeah, I'd say shock of the season. Mine definitely was the Sheffield goal at the restart of the season. You know, that goalkeeper of Villa going right behind the line with that ball, and you know, just nothing coming through. Actually, I saw an article that Bournemouth are actually going to try and, you know, I don't know exactly what the term
They
is
want
for
to
it.
claim from Hawkeye. Yeah.
They want to claim from Hawkeye for that one. So I'd say that's definitely shock of the season for me. Mike, shock of the season to you?
Well, sorry. My shock of the season would have to be Watford ending Liverpool's invincible run.
Oh, the glory.
Well, I'm going to have to go with shock of the season, Arsenal finishing eighth. Obviously, you know, it's not that much of a shock seeing, you know, the players we have and the change of management, but obviously we never think that our team would finish that low. All right. The new surprise of the season.
Surprise of the season. Yeah, United actually playing Champions League for a stage again.
Yeah, well, it's also something I definitely didn't see, especially after lockdown, with them being 13 points off the Champions League spots. Mike?
Yeah, well, Bren, I probably agree a bit. After Fernandes was signed, well, before Fernandes was signed, we didn't see United playing in the Champions League at all next season. So that's obviously one of the things, and the other would probably Villa staying up, you know.
Well, I'll have to say it's difficult because one can fall under both of the next two categories for me, but it's probably going to be Sheffield United's performances, getting into that top, you know, where did they finish at the end of the day? I think they finished ninth, just below us, isn't it? But I mean, being in contention for Champions League for so long, nobody predicted it. You know, coming from the Championship, that was definitely a big surprise. And then the best performance of the season.
Yeah, I'd go to quite an interesting one. Definitely not Jose Mourinho. However, I do think I would settle probably on Frank Lampard. You know, if you look at a coach doing what he did with the team that he did in the form that they were, as we touched on previously, I would definitely commend him for that.
Well, Bren, the first time you asked the question, I heard best performer of the season.
Well, best performer doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, whatever. I think it'd be quite blind not to take your best performer of the season as Kevin De Bruyne. Just had an absolutely outstanding season. You know, scoring, I think, something like 13 goals in the Premier League, as well as contributing 20 assists. You know, as well what he does defensively and linking up the play throughout the team as well.
Yeah, look, I definitely think it's an absolute shame that he didn't get player of the season. I think Henderson did a lot, but nothing near what De Bruyne brings to the team or to the Premier League. So it was a bit of a, I don't know, disappointment to see Henderson getting it, for me personally, above someone like Kevin.
Agreed.
But the best performance of the season I would have to give, unfortunately, to Liverpool. They didn't really bring or strengthen the team that much to keep up their standards, you know, to absolutely walk the league like they did. We need to give kudos where kudos is due. So well done to Liverpool. All right,
Yeah, I
guys.
agree. As hard as it is to admit that, I agree with you, Ben.
Is there anything you guys would like to touch on regarding the final weekend of the Premier League or the Premier League in general? Sorry, but seeming like I really don't want to go into too much detail regarding Arsenal's season. So, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, well, Brenna, I just obviously named my dream signing for the transfer window for Arsenal is obviously Jack Grealish. I just wanted to find out, obviously, Renee's for Spurs and yours for Arsenal with your dream signings.
Yeah, dream signing at this moment. We did lose Vertonghen now. We're probably going to lose Alderweireld as well. So, it should probably be a proper defender. Just someone young, someone talented. I'm a very big fan of Sule that plays for Bayern Munich. So at this moment, to just get that strength back up, in our defense, I'd say Sule from Bayern. Yourself, Brent?
I don't know. It's difficult for the Arsenal, we could replace the whole team and have it as a dream signing. But I tend to agree with Michael. I think we've got a lot of youngsters still coming through in defense, so that we can hopefully rely on into the future. And I think attacking midfielder is key. And someone with like Grealish that's young, dynamic, has got that bit of a nasty edge to him would be perfect for this Arsenal side. So I have to agree, Mike. I think Jack Grealish should probably be the dream signing for Arsenal at the moment. Yeah, need anything you would want to add on top of this for the Premier League season?
Yeah, not necessarily anything for the Premier League season. I'd just be interested to see. There's been a lot of rumors about Pochettino coming back to the league. So I do think, he's already rejected Monaco to be their coach when they got Niko Kovac now. So, yeah, I just think the only interesting thing at this stage, apart from the transfer market, would be to see where Pochettino actually winds up. I can't necessarily see him replacing any of the top 6 managers at the moment, but I would enjoy seeing him back in the Premier League.
Yeah, I agree. I think Pochettino is a very good coach. Obviously, it's unfortunate he had to go and join Spurs, but I also don't really see where he's going to fit in the Premier League at the moment. And it seems like he wants a team that's going to guarantee Champions League football. It's what it sounds like. So probably I see, one of the top La Liga positions opening up soon. Zidane is a very, what's the word we're looking for? Decisive figure. So as soon as a few results go against him, he's out the door quite quickly, looking at what happened previously. And
same going for Barcelona.
I know Barcelona aren't very happy with their current coach, so there might be an opportunity from there.
Definitely.
Guys, we need, before I let you go, obviously we're going to record a FA Cup final special. What are your predictions for the game?
Yeah, it's both the arch rivals at the moment. However, I do not like Chelsea once, whatsoever. So I'd rather want to root for Arsenal, to be very honest with you, just because of Mikel Arteta, if we could say it very straight. So yeah, I'd say if you're judging by by your mind and so forth, and the type of players and everything, I do think Arsenal could actually put it through. I think the motivation is there on Arsenal's side. I do think Chelsea already got what they wanted from the season in the league. So I do think Arsenal will pull it through at a 2-1.
Oh, I hope personally that you break the curse and you get a prediction right. Because I think we're in desperate need of some silverware at Arsenal. Yeah, guys, thanks a lot for the season review, basically, the final day review. I'm sure we'll get together and do a full season review looking specifically at Arsenal and Spurs, what happened. And we'll continue doing probably a few transfer shows as we wait for the new season to kick off. I think pre-season friendlies are scheduled to start in like 4 weeks. So it's not going to be that long and we'll have a lot to talk about again. And I'm pretty sure, like I just mentioned, the transfer window is going to keep us quite busy. But as always, thanks for joining and hope you have a good night further.
Thanks,
All the
man.
best. Cheers, guys.